Today on The Big Story, U.S. House of Representatives has impeached President Donald Trump. What's next and what is the likelihood of Trump being removed as president? A new survey looking at public attitudes towards migrant workers has found that only a quarter of Singaporeans sees the need for migrant workers despite many agreeing there is a labour shortage. Former gang members severing all ties with the secret societies they once belonged to through a gang renunciation ceremony. Stay on to find out more. It's 5:30 p.m. here in Singapore and you're watching The Big Story, where we will discuss the hottest topics of the day and explain why it matters. I'm Haryanto Diman, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Now, President Donald Trump became the third president in United States history to be impeached, with the House of Representatives voting to approve 2 articles of impeachment against him. The Democratic-led House passed the abuse of power article of impeachment, largely along party lines, in a 230 to 197 vote. The House then proceeded with a vote on a second article of impeachment, charging Mr. Trump with obstruction of Congress, which passed along similar lines. The House action sets the stage for a trial next month in the Republican-controlled Senate, a friendlier terrain for Mr. Trump on whether to convict him and remove him from office. Conviction and removal of the president will require a 2/3 majority in the 100-member Senate. This means at least 20 Republicans and all the Democrats and Independents would have to vote against him. So what's the road ahead for Mr. Trump? What's the likelihood of his removal as president? To tell us more, we have foreign editor Jeremy Au Yong. Welcome, Jeremy. Now, Jeremy, tell us what is going to happen now to Mr. Trump, seeing that he has been impeached by the U.S. House of Representatives.
Okay, so it's good to think of, I don't want to say impeachment, let's call it removal from office. To remove a president from the White House is a 2-step process, broadly. The first is what happened today. That's step 1, the House of Representatives, the lower house of Congress, has to impeach the president with 50% majority. A simple 51%, a simple majority is enough to impeach the president.
Right.
That happened today.
Right.
Then we move on to the second step, which is a trial in the Senate. If 2/3 of the Senate, which Senate has 100 members, if 2/3 of the Senate vote for impeachment, then the president is removed from office.
Right.
Now, what is going to happen to Trump? In this step 2, it is extremely, I would consider it extremely unlikely that he will be removed from office.
And why is that so?
Well, if you look at what happened today, and we saw in the intro video package, it takes 67 senators to vote to impeach.
Right.
That requires, because the Republicans control the Senate, that means it takes 20 Republicans to cross the aisle.
At least 20 Republicans.
It takes at least 20 to cross the aisle to join the Democrats to vote. This is assuming all Democrats vote to impeach the president. And what we saw today in the House is that party discipline within the Republican Party was very good. Not a single Republican, there I think were 167 in the House, not a single one voted to impeach Trump.
Okay.
Now, historically, the Senate is a more moderate, the senators are supposed to be more independent-minded than the congressmen. So we can expect to see more than 0 across the aisle, but to get 20 is just impossible.
Right. And now, could you briefly, let's backtrack a little bit. Could you briefly take us through the impeachment process? How did Trump get to where he is now here?
Wow, okay. It's actually quite a long answer. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. So actually, if you ask the Republicans, they will say the Democrats have been trying to impeach this president since the day he got elected.
And that is 2016, right?
He was elected in 2016, he took office in 2017. They are convinced that Democrats have been trying to impeach him since that day.
Right.
That's not quite true. I think maybe one Democratic congressman you can find some statements about him talking about impeaching Trump in 2017. But the real impeachment efforts started later, but not that much later. So this really has been something that has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's actually almost take two, because there was the, feels like ancient history, the Robert Mueller investigation into the Trump campaign's links with Russia and Russia's interference in the 2016 election. This was a 2-year investigation that ended. He released the report, I believe it was March, just this year. March this year feels like forever ago. It was March this year, he released the report, and then there were already there's some chatter about impeachment. Because the report, while it did not specifically accuse the president of collusion at the time or conspiracy with Russia, it laid out a whole list of wrongdoings, including several instances of obstruction of justice. There were chatterings of impeachment, but the Democrats largely were, the Democratic leadership was largely against it. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was famously quite reluctant to take up impeachment proceedings at the time. That was March. September, we had the whistleblower report about this phone call with Russia. The basic gist of it is that Trump withheld military aid to Russia in order to to Ukraine, in order to pressure Ukraine into announcing that they were investigating Joe Biden, which is his political rival. So this felt like a straightforward abuse of power to the Democrats, and that whistleblower report subsequently built into this impeachment case. Now, in impeachment, they filed 2 articles of impeachment: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, both relating very narrowly to Ukraine and leaving out Mueller. But I like to think that just the wrath of wrongdoings that they laid out in Mueller laid the foundation for where we are today. So it was Democrats like those who, after seeing one instance of the president committing or seeking this foreign interference, might have brushed it aside. The second time, they felt they had to do something.
Now, Jeremy, tell us, what are, if any at all, the implications of this impeachment on, say, the upcoming election that is slated to happen next year?
Yeah, it's very hard to tell. And several things will impact it. First of all, it's timing. So I know everybody, initially the thought was, impeach today. In January, the Senate will hold its trial. Mitch McConnell promised a very short one, and then by February, everything will be over. So today, we are starting to hear that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi does not want to submit the impeachment over to the Senate straight away. So she wants to use it as leverage to negotiate for a fairer Senate trial, because the Democrats consider the trial that has been announced to be unfair. So that could push timing back a bit. The closer it is to the election, the bigger the impact, one assumes. Although, that said, Trump's popularity has been remarkably stable through his 3 years in office. It's vacillated between this low 40s. It's stayed there no matter what has happened, and all kinds of things that have happened in that time. It stayed quite fixed in that band. His supporters really don't care. And it's not clear to me how many people are left out there who are undecided about who they are going to vote for. There's the Never Trump camp and there's the Forever Trump camp. And those are quite fixed. How many people are now still up for grabs? Can be negotiated. They are looking at this impeachment process and saying, okay, maybe that's going to change my mind. I don't know how big that group is.
Of course, I mean, things are still in its nascent stages right now. Impeachment has happened, and of course, like you mentioned, Senate trial is going to happen in January.
Could be February.
Could be February. It could drag on, right? And of course, we don't know yet what are the impacts, if any, on this impeachment. On the election that is coming next year. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming onto the show, to shed more light on this issue. Now, to read more on Donald Trump's impeachment, you can visit our website at straitstimes.com. straits.com. Now moving on, a new survey looking at the public's attitudes towards migrant workers has found that only 1 in 4 Singaporeans sees the need for migrant workers, despite many agreeing there is a labour shortage. More than half also believe crime has increased and the country's culture and heritage have been threatened because of migrant workers. The report, Public Attitudes Towards Migrant Workers in Japan, Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand, was based on a survey of 4,099 nationals of the 4 countries, including 1,005 Singaporeans. Done by the International Labour Organization (ILO) and United Nations Women, the report said positive attitudes towards migrant workers have declined over the last decade, even as migration has increased overall. Nonetheless, Singaporeans have a more positive view of migrant workers compared to their Asian counterparts. The survey was conducted between last December and January this year and released yesterday to mark International Migrants' Day. To share more on the findings of the survey, we have Assistant Business Editor Joanna Seah. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you.
Now, Jo, tell us, what were the main findings of the survey? Anything that is interesting from the survey?
Okay, so even though Singaporeans seem to be more accepting of foreigners in many aspects compared with the other 3 countries surveyed, it was quite surprising that a significant share of people actually hold negative views towards migrant workers. So for instance, 30% saw them as a drain on the economy.
Right.
32% said migrant workers have poor work ethics and can't be trusted. And 52% felt migrants have caused the crime rate here to go up.
Yeah.
And also a quarter of those surveyed, as you mentioned, felt that Singapore doesn't need migrant workers. But given that our citizen working age population is actually going to plateau next year and then start to shrink, we'll probably need more workers from elsewhere unless companies can become way more productive overnight. And also looking at domestic helpers in particular, though, most of the Singaporeans surveyed actually did support improved working conditions for them.
Yeah. And how have things changed over the years? Because there was a similar survey that was done as well a few years back. How have things changed?
Okay, so the survey gave countries a score based on the knowledge, attitudes and practices of its citizens towards migrant workers, and it compared the score with the similar survey done in 2010. And the scores actually went down for Singapore and Malaysia and Thailand, which were the ones that were compared. And that means that the general support for migrant workers here has declined somewhat.
Right.
And I think it would be interesting to see more research into why this has happened. The report didn't go that deep into the reasons why. Although it did suggest that one reason could be because the share of respondents here who have close relationships with foreigners, so that means having them as friends, colleagues, subordinates or employees, the share of those people has actually gone down. So the authors suggested that maybe this could have something to do with the decline in support.
Right. And apart from the findings of the survey, the report as well put forth some recommendations as well to tackle, to alleviate, as it were, attitudes towards migrant workers. Could you share more on that as well?
So some of the more interesting recommendations include promoting social inclusion by integrating migrant workers' accommodation with the rest of the city. So right now we don't do that as much here because a lot of the dorms are built in the more ulu parts of Singapore. And the report also suggested promoting evidence, so like hard evidence of the actual benefits of having foreigners working in the country, so as to debunk common myths such as them having a negative impact on the economy. And then it also suggested tackling fake news, racial discrimination and hate speech online, and ensuring that civil society online activism is encouraged and supported.
Right. So at the end of the day, it's really a myriad of factors, right, to kind of tackle and alleviate, as it were, the attitudes towards these migrant workers. Now, thank you, Jo, for coming on to the show to tell us more about this. To read more on the survey findings, of course, you can head on to our website, straitstimes.com. And now let's move on to What's Trending, where Dylan will share with us what's buzzing in the Internetverse. Dylan?
Thanks, Aranto. It's time for What's Trending. While most of us would have been happy playing with our toys when we were 8, 8-year-old Ryan Kaji has had way more success. He's the highest paid YouTuber for 2019. Ryan earned a cool $26 million this year, according to Forbes magazine, having already been the highest paid creator last year. His channel, Ryan's World, launched in 2015 when he was just 3, and one of his videos, Huge Egg Surprise Toys Challenge, boasts a staggering 1.9 billion views. Initially called Ryan Toys Review, the channel consists of mostly unboxing videos showing Ryan opening boxes of toys and playing with them. Good stuff, Ryan. Next up, it's good to be back, or maybe not. A passenger returning home after arriving at Changi Airport was kicked off his ride by a Gojek driver over a $3 tip. In a Facebook post, Mr. Joseph Lam recounted how the driver had repeatedly asked him if he would tip for his service and mentioned that the Grab surge fare was significantly higher for a similar trip. He then suggested a $3 tip if his passengers didn't mind. They did, and the driver proceeded to drop them off at the nearest bus stop along Airport Boulevard. Gojek has since said that they are looking into the matter. And finally, in a victory for women's rights in Japan, a Japanese court has ruled in favor of journalist Shori Ito in one of the most high-profile cases of the Me Too movement there. The case made headlines there in 2017, where it is rare for rape victims to come forward. The government study then revealed that only 4% of women did. Ito went public with allegations that prominent reporter Noriyuki Yamaguchi, known for his reporting on Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, had raped her in 2015 after they had met over drinks to discuss a job offer. Yamaguchi has been ordered to pay 3.3 million yen or 41,000 Singapore dollars in damages. The win has been celebrated online, with many commending Ito's bravery and noting the victory as a significant milestone for the nation. And that's all we have for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, link it in the comment section below. Back to you, Haryanto.
Now, thanks, Dylan. I think we need to ask Ryan to come on the big story as well. Now, on to local news. Taking the step to renounce and sever all ties with the secret societies they once belonged to can be a daunting experience for former gang members. Now, this is especially so when they have to do it in a prison auditorium with the knowledge that some of their fellow prisoners will see them as a traitor. Behind the walls of Changi Prison, a ceremony takes place which is not often talked about because of what it can mean for its participants. The Gang Renunciation Program ceremony involves gang members severing all ties with the secret societies they once belonged to. The program was launched in 2009, and to date over 1,700 inmates have taken part, said the Singapore Prison Service. Earlier today, Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Home Affairs and Health, Mr. Amrin Amin, uploaded on his Facebook page a short video clip which sheds light on the gang renunciation ceremony and its importance. Speaking to the Straits Times, Mr. Amrin said he felt the video clip was a good opportunity to share with the public, especially youths, valuable insights and perspectives from former gang members. We have with us right now Senior Correspondent Zaihan Muhammad Yusof in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Zai.
Hi, Ian.
Now, Zai, you tell us about this renunciation ceremony. Now, what happened during this ceremony and what's the purpose of this ceremony?
Okay, this renunciation ceremony in prison is part of the Gang Renunciation Program. So basically, when a prisoner, an inmate with gang affiliation, has made a decision and informs his supervisor, personal supervisor, that he intends to get out of a gang, so the prison will arrange for him to be part of this ceremony, where they have to publicly declare a dissociation from the gang. And there would be a speech, and you're doing it in front of your prison staff, some family members, counselors, and also your inmates. And among them, there could be your members from the same gang.
And Zai, you spoke to some former gang members, which of course you outlined the experience in your story as well. One of them, Mr. Paul Ang, now he shared his gang initiation experience and also his gang renunciation ceremony experience. Can you tell us more on that?
This is a bit strange. Mr. Ang spent his time with a gang for 21 years. He was a recruiter, gang recruiter, and also a fighter. But in a twist of fate, he's now he's left the gang life, and he is a volunteer for prisons. And his job role now is to discourage gang members from continuing with their affiliation. And he recounted his experience when he was 17 years old. He was brought to a forest in Sembawang. There were 30 of them, all fresh recruits, and they had to drink blood from fingers when you prick, and into a bowl and with rice wine, and drink and vow that you swear allegiance to the brotherhood. So
It's really like a cult of sorts, yeah?
yes, but that's why I guess it is a little bit difficult for them to want to renounce their brotherhood, because they've been with these guys for the longest time, and then they make the tough decision that I have had enough. I want to leave. And in Mr. Ang's case, he shared that when I was in prison, he was in prison for about 11 years.
Yeah.
Who were the ones who suffered most? My family members. Yeah. So he had enough. He just wanted a normal life.
Yeah, but okay, so Zai, you mentioned that these former gang members, they say, it's difficult, right, to leave the gang or to disassociate from themselves from the gang, but they still do it. What are some of the reasons apart from family?
Okay, apart from family, some were angry that, when they were incarcerated, who visited them? Definitely not their brothers, their gang brothers. No, it was their family. So they realized that their bonds were stronger with family rather than with their gang members. So it was all talk. So some of them left because they were angry. Some just wanted a normal life, a stable life, a job. That's it. So, it is not easy to make the decision, but there are protections in place. Prisons have this, like, you can report to your prison officer if you've received threats. Someone, it would be normal to get taunts, or maybe people jeering at you, saying that you're a traitor, you left the group, but that's normal. But once, if it becomes too serious, the threat becomes too serious, then the prison authorities would have to come in and they can be punished.
Right.
The former gang the gang members can be punished for doing that.
Zaid, now let's talk about Mr. Amrin's video. He uploaded a video of this, and tell us a bit more. What is the video about, and what is the aim of this video?
I think the video gives you a look. You always hear, as reporters, we've heard about gang renunciation in prison, in the prison, but to have a video to show you the space, the time where in an auditorium there are rows of inmates, and also one man making that vow, giving his speech and telling the reason why he intends to leave the gang. It takes a lot of guts. We can imagine it, but this is a video that shows this ceremony happening. And not only that, I think what was more important in Mr. Amrin's video was he interviewed Sam. Sam has been in the gang for 37 years, secret society. For him to leave must have been a very difficult decision, because he is at a senior level. But of course, people change. It's never too late to change. You may decide to leave the gang, not today, not tomorrow, but there will always be a time and a second chance to do so.
Right. And Zai, of course, in the video as well, people get to see, as it were, the condition as well in the prison, I think, right?
Yes. That's pretty standard. We've been in prison for visits and so on. I mean, you need to stay on the straight and narrow, and that's the last place you want to be. But I also would like to add that, it doesn't end there with the renunciation. When you leave, there is an aftercare program where prisoners who have had gang affiliations, they will be checked. They would have friends to call on to for help, and also there's a number you can call if you receive threats from your former gang members. Like Mr. Ang shared with me, he showed this old piece of paper, this original piece of paper, which he kept since 2009, acknowledging his gang renunciation ceremony. And in the list, there's a number to call, CID, basically, in case you get taunting from your ex-members and so on.
So there is assistance for them.
Yes, of course.
Once they've renounced, and if they need any help at all, if they've been threatened, and if they've been taunted by other gang members, there is assistance for them. So they don't have, in a way, to feel scared of taking that step.
If you're on the right side of the law, you're all right.
Right. Now, thank you so much, Zai, for coming on to the show to tell us more about this. To watch the video, of course, you can check it out on Mr. Amrin's Facebook page. To read more on Zaihan's story, you can visit our website at straitstimes.com. Now, and those are the top stories for today. For more news and videos, of course, you can visit straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman. Thank you for watching The Big Story, and we'll see you tomorrow.